Hi everyone, welcome to kind of the end of week 2. I have some tips for you as you revise your assignments this week, and this is hopefully going to be a little bit shorter of a video. The first note that I want to give you is on the discussions. I noticed this week that some of us had like kind of smaller grammatical errors in our initial or peer response posts, and I just want to remind you to please proofread everything that you submit. So one great way to do that is to type your post in Word first, do the spell and grammar check, make sure everything is set, and then copy and paste that into our online platform page and then post, and then hopefully that'll catch some of those errors that I've been finding. The other thing I noticed in the discussion this week was that as we defined argument, tended to define it as two parties. Whether or not that was intentional, I want to encourage us to start thinking about argument as having multiple perspectives rather than just two. I think, I don't know, maybe they're like two strongest opinions on a lot of topics, like two very oppositional perspectives that we see modeled a lot. But I want us to stop thinking about it as like a timeline or like two-dimensional axis. I want us to start thinking about argument as more like as a diamond, where there's one topic, which is the diamond, but on that topic there are multiple facets. There are different perspectives, some that are closer together than others, but there aren't any two that are really exactly the same. Now we may come across some sources that do have pretty similar, if not the same arguments, but for the most part, I want us to start thinking about the complexity of argument rather than the simplicity of it. So that's just something to keep in the back of your minds as we continue. My last notes are about the ALA, and I have quite a few of these, so stay with me. All of these are important. These are kind of some of the trends I saw as I was grading and some things I want you to keep in mind. And then I'll also talk a little bit about the 2 PowerPoints that I have attached below. So the first thing is, I'm sorry that last week I forgot to say that the assignments for this class are not at a length where they really require an abstract, so those are not necessary. So if you wrote an abstract this first week, bravo, bonus points for you. I didn't require it, and so for all the future assignments, please don't include one. It's not necessary for the length of our assignments. The second note I have is to please refer to authors by their last name. So for example, if I chose Barbara Kingsolver's essay to analyze, I would refer to her as Kingsolver rather than Barbara. It's just generally accepted academic practice, kind of a formality. It is appropriate to introduce an author by their full name. In Barbara Kingsolver's essay, and our flag was still there, blah, blah, blah. That's totally fine. And every subsequent reference to her, though, we want to refer to her as Kingsolver, again, not as Barbara. Another note on authors, if we are referring to a source that has more than one author, we want to include all of those names in our citation. So for example, in Everything's an Argument, get it in screen there, we have two authors, and I think some of you might have a version where there are 3, but for this one there are 2, Lunsford and Ruskiewicz. And if we cite this source and only write Lunsford, we're not giving credit to Ruskiewicz. Even though his name is second, he's still important, he still worked on this book, so we want to be sure that we include him. Now, if you're curious about 3 authors, 4 authors, and so forth, the chapter on APA formatting in your textbook, The Bedford Researcher, offers more information on that, but I do want to at least make that note there. My fourth note is about organization of your ideas. So in our analysis, our rhetorical analyses this week, I noticed that some of us chose to organize our ideas based on chronology of the speech or essay. So starting at the beginning of Kingsolver's piece in the very first paragraph down to the last paragraph. Excuse me. And while this can be an effective way to organize our ideas, because we're doing a rhetorical analysis where we're focused on the way that she presents her argument and the kind of the tools or the elements of argument that she uses, I think this assignment might lend itself better to organizing our paragraphs based on the tool or the element itself. So for example, if I'm, again, just to use Barbara Kingsolver's piece, if I am analyzing her essay and I'm talking about ethos, pathos, and logos, I want to organize my body paragraphs that way. If I start with the beginning and say in the beginning she talks about ethos and logos, in the middle she talks about pathos, in the end, not talks about, but she utilizes, these appeals. In the end, she utilizes logos and ethos. I have multiple ideas appearing throughout, and it just really helps readers to understand the flow of your argument a little bit more if you keep like ideas together. So in that case, I should talk about all the points where I see her utilizing ethos well in one paragraph. And then I want to talk about all the places where I see her utilizing pathos well in the second paragraph, and so forth. So if I made that note, that's what I'm talking about. If I didn't make that note and you think that would be a better organization for you, please go ahead and do that. I just wanted to kind of make that blanket statement there. Think about the best way to organize your ideas rather than just moving chronologically. Okay, the next part, the next few notes I have to do with APA formatting and quoting citing sources. So the first here is to please introduce quotations. I noticed some of us have our own sentences flowing, and then all of a sudden our sentence ends and we just drop in a quote in the middle of the paragraph. I call this being a kind guide. So your job as a writer is to lead your readers into quotes from other people. So you are gathering things and kind of holding their hand through it all. So you're going to have your sentences, and then from your sentences, it should flow seamlessly right into the information from a source. So use taglines or introductory phrases. I think your textbook calls them signal phrases that say something like X argues or Kingsolver states, blah, blah, blah. And then, it's a simple, brief tagline or introductory phrase, but it at least tells readers who's speaking, and then they're not just like, where did this quote come from? What's going on here? So lead them, guide them kindly into the quotes themselves. This helps give them context as well. And then after all information that did not originate with you, you want to be sure that you include a citation. For quotes specifically in APA format, you must cite a page or paragraph number. Now for speeches, this doesn't apply because there is no page or paragraph number unless you're referring specifically to the written text, which some of you did. However, if there is an article, a book, even say a blog entry that you're citing, you need to cite either the page number, or if it's a non-paginated source, you must cite the paragraph number. I have included an APA PowerPoint with some of these tips and reminders, so please look through that. I guess it's not titled APA, it's titled Week 3 PowerPoint, but there's APA tips and reminders there, and this is one of them. So just a note, be sure that you cite page or paragraph number for all quoted material. And if you have questions on how to do that, check your textbook, and always feel free to ask me. I'm going to take a sip of water. Okay, the next is block quotes. Also on that PowerPoint, there's information about how to cite lengthy quotes or block quotes. In APA format, quotes that are longer than 40 words must be cited a little bit differently. So there's information in the PowerPoint on how to do that, as well as information in your textbook. Okay, 3 more points. We're almost there. The next one is that if I made a comment in your essay, either about a comma or about like if you didn't write P period and the page number, or you didn't put commas in between like Williams, comma, 1991 in your citation, if I made that note once, please look for that throughout the rest of your paper. It takes a lot of time for me to highlight every single one and write the same thing over and over again. So I wrote it once, and I'm making this statement here. Please look for that throughout your entire paper. If you just change it in the one spot, it's not showing me that you are internalizing my comments and making the revisions appropriately. So if you have questions again, let me know, but that's my expectation, that if I write something in one spot and you see it somewhere else, please do go ahead and make that change. Okay, the next point is that for all of our work that we're submitting, I expect that we'll have both thesis statements in the introductory paragraph, as well as topic sentences. Now, most of us did this, and for that I'm grateful. It makes it a whole lot easier for your reader to follow your work. when those are written and written clearly. If I made notes about how to do that, or that they were missing, please spend some time crafting some, that's my dog, crafting some strong thesis statements and topic sentences. I have attached to PowerPoint the same PowerPoint as the APA that has information about thesis statements and how to write solid ones. And then I've also attached a PowerPoint called Developing Ideas that helps you kind of work through, okay, now that I have a thesis, now that I have topic sentences, how do I actually like make this into a full paragraph and make it a strong one? So please refer to those. Finally, if you hear snoring, it's totally my dog. This is Nora underneath me, and you can see, whoop, Gracie's back there sleeping. My last note is for this final draft of the rhetorical analysis. There's Turnitin that we're using, so it's an online, tool that we use to try to check for plagiarism. So if you have quotes that aren't properly cited, if you have not quoted or cited material that is not from you, it can raise that to our attention, and then we can address where to go from there and how to fix it. But Turnitin is set up right now to allow for multiple submissions. So anytime up until the due date, you're able to submit your essay to check for plagiarism. So I encourage all of you to do that early. I won't read them until the due date, but go ahead and submit it and you can see what parts are flagged as plagiarized. Now there are times when Turnitin flags something that isn't plagiarized, or you're like, ooh, and you go back and check and you're like, yeah, no, that's not plagiarized. It sometimes does that, and I take that into account as well. But at least then you're in the practice of seeing what it is flagging, revising where you can, and then you and I can talk about like, hey, whoa, it's showing like 30% and I checked each of them and it's not plagiarism, what do I do? Then you and I are in dialogue and I'm aware that you're doing your work, you're diligent, you're checking, and so forth. So please use that to your advantage. It's there to help you. Okay, very last note for this week, and it's this. Please notice that there are rubrics for each assignment. Please read through those ahead of time so that you are aware of what you're graded on. But this week especially, I want to note that your final draft rubric differs significantly from your rough draft rubric, and that's intentional. The rough draft rubric is much more low stakes. It's your first draft. It's basically wanting to know that you did the work. But your final draft rubric for the rhetorical analysis is much more detailed, and because of that, you're graded on different things. And so what I want to stress is that your rough draft grade does not necessarily mean that your final draft grade will be that grade or higher. Sometimes it could be lower if significant changes aren't made, and that kind of thing. And so I want to be very clear about that. If you have questions, please always feel free to contact me, and I'd be happy to discuss your grades and my comments with you. But please don't go into week 2 thinking, oh, I got an A, I got 100% on the rough draft, I'm going to at least get that on the final draft. That's not the case, because the rubrics are different and you're graded on a different scale. So keep that in mind, read through the rubric so that you are very aware of what I'm looking for, and let me know if you have questions in the meantime. Yeah, hopefully my dogs weren't too distracting. It kind of threw off my train of thought there. But anyway, I hope you're doing well this week. Thank you for your patience as I finish my grading. And as always, ask me questions as they arise. We'll talk soon.